Hello everyone, welcome in my new video. This one is about web workers in JavaScript. So I will talk about the web workers and what they are, how they work, how you can implement your own web worker, and yeah. So if you learned something new from this one, or if you like this video, then please consider giving it a like. And without further ado, let's get on with the presentation that I prepared for this one. So the web workers in JavaScript are basically a way to make our applications or JavaScript applications so that we can run two tasks at a time. So we can think of it like we have our application where our UI is continuously running, and if we want to outsource some piece of code or some tasks, then we can send them to a new thread of the web worker so that the functions that are assigning inside the web worker will run at the same time that our main thread stays active. Alright, so these two threads are independent in the way that they can run at the same time. But as you know, JavaScript runs only one piece or only one line of the code at a time. So you cannot run two lines of code at a time. So this is impossible in JavaScript. So the way that we are sending some events or some objects is that we are creating a new web worker by creating it with the new worker constructor, and then we are accessing the post message method where we are passing in the value or objects, and this method will open a connection between these two threads, and it will pass the copied value because the objects are not shared, right? So the copied value will be shared, or send it to the web worker thread, where we can access the connection between the main application or the main file by writing the onConnect method, and whenever the event happens or the message is being sent, we can access the event by writing the onConnect, and then we can access the event data. And when we want to send some data back, or when we want to run some other functions, then we can specify it inside this file. And when we want to send the objects of the data back to our main thread, we can accessing the post message method, where we are passing in the value, and this value will be passed in as the message, or it will be copied, and then the copied value will be passed in as the event back to our main thread. So the flow is that we are creating a new web worker, which I will show you in a moment. Then we are accessing the post message. Then we are posting some message. After that, we are accessing the onConnect message, which will run whenever the message is being posted. After that, we are creating sending the message back by accessing the post message method, and the value is being copied and then sent back to our main thread. Right. So the main goal of the web worker is that so we are staying with our applications in a continuously way to interactions of our users to our applications or websites, so that these two threads can run at the same time. All right. So what are the differences between these two threads, basically? So the main difference is that inside our main threads, we can access the window and the global scope, which are not accessible in the web worker thread, right? So in the web worker, we have access to the dedicated worker global scope and the shared worker global scope, which are the apart different scopes that are not accessible in the main thread, right? And so inside the main thread, we can also access the DOM elements and the parent elements, which we cannot access inside the web worker thread. And also the web worker cannot access the DOM or cannot modify any DOM elements inside our main file, access the window object. So these are the main differences between the main thread and the web worker thread, right? And so how the dedicated worker looks like and how the shared worker looks like. So here you can see that inside our main application, our main file, I'm creating a new worker by accessing the constructor and passing in the name of the file, which will be our worker. And so inside the worker, this will be our web worker, which I show you here. So the web worker will be this file, and our main.js will be actually the main thread of our application, right? And so the shared workers are basically created in the sort of same way as the dedicated worker, but we are creating it with the new shared worker method, and we are also passing in the name of the file that is our worker. But our shared worker can be created in multiple files, and one worker can be accessed in multiple files. But when we are creating a dedicated worker, we can only create, or this worker can be only accessed by one file that is accessing it as a first. So the first file that will be accessing the worker file will be the file that will be able to connect to our worker, right? It sounds a bit complicated, but let me show you some examples that are prepared here. So here you can see that I'm creating a basic HTML file. I'm accessing the dedicated file, JS file, and so the dedicated file looks like this. So I'm accessing all the elements that I have inside our HTML document. Then I'm creating a worker by creating it with the new worker constructor. I'm passing in the name of the file that I want to create as a worker. Then I'm adding a listener on the start button, which is this button. And so here I'm posting a message. So here you can see that I'm opening a connection between the worker and our main file by accessing the post message method. And here you can see that I'm passing in some string value, and this string value will be sent to our worker, which is here. And here I'm accessing the onMessage method. This onMessage method will catch the connection that is opened or is being opened between these two files. So this method will open the connection between the main file and the worker, and this method will catch whatever the actions are happening. And so here you can see that I'm accessing the event. I'm accessing the data that was passing in inside the event, and I'm posting the message back to our main file. So I'm creating a message with whatever the data was passing in to the event, and I'm sending the message back to our main file. And whatever the value will be sent back to our main file, I'm accessing the onMessage method, which will be created or will be fired up whenever the value will come back from the worker. So here I'm creating the message, here I'm receiving the message, and here I'm also receiving the message, and I'm sending the message back to our main file. So here you can see that I'm also accessing the button element to terminate our worker. Excuse me. to terminate our worker, because when we access the worker, this worker will continue to run unless we stop it. So to free some resources of the browser and the application, we can access the worker and passing and assigning the method to terminate this worker. All right. So let's just run this code and let's see in this example how it works. So here again, running the worker, right? I'm receiving the message from the web worker, so I'm sending the hello string. I'm assigning the vault string, and I'm getting back the message which I am passing in inside the element of the HTML document here. And this worker will still runs, so if you want to stop it, we can just terminate it, and so this worker will be terminated. All right. So this is the dedicated worker. So one file, one worker. But what if you want to make some shared workers to actually make our worker be usable to multiple files? So here you can see that I'm accessing, or I'm creating a shared worker, which will be one worker that is accessible through multiple files. So I'm creating a shared worker, and again, to send some message, you have to access it by a port method, because you can also send multiple ports with on the window object. But in this example, I'm just creating I'm sending one port. So the way that you connect to the worker file is that you're accessing the port method, and then you're passing some message with the value, which will be copied and then send it to our worker. So again, here I'm passing some messages, and then this message will be catched on the worker, where I'm specifying the onConnect message, and then whatever the events was that was sent in from our application or the file. I'm catching this event. I'm accessing the port, because the shared worker will send an array of the ports, and so we have to access the first port because we are only sending one port in this file. So here you can see that I'm accessing the first port, then I'm assigning the onMessage method, and so whatever the message was passing in inside the port, I'm accessing it by the event.data, and then I'm assigning a new string to it, and I'm sending the message back to our application file. And this file is basically the same. I made this to the same files. So let's run this code and let's see how this works. So you can see we have our worker number 1, first message, and the worker number 2, the second message. And to stop these two workers, we can also do it like this. But if you want to stop the shared worker, you need to access again the port object and assigning the close method. So this will close the port which was created to send some value. Alright, that was quite a lot. And again, if you enjoy this one, if you want to hear something new or learn something new on JavaScript, then put it down in a section comment, and I will see you next time. Bye.